The adoption petition has been filed, Mrs. Brennan. You have 14 days to respond, or you'll lose all parental rights permanently. I'd spent 3 days staring at those words on the legal document. 3 days of silence in an apartment that still smelled like my daughter's strawberry shampoo. 3 days of scrolling through my ex-husband's Instagram, watching my mother-in-law pose with my children like they were hers. The caption read, "Finally giving these angels the life they deserve." The life they deserve. As if I hadn't given them everything I had. You know what's funny about karma? Sometimes it doesn't rush. Sometimes it takes its time, lets people dig their own graves deeper and deeper until the moment they realize what they've done. And by then, it's far too late. But before I go any further, let me ask you something. How's your day going? Are you watching this from your couch, maybe during a lunch break, or are you lying in bed trying to distract yourself from your own problems? Whatever brought you here, I'm glad you're here. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to sound impossible. But I promise you, every word of this is true. My name is Nora Ashford. Well, it's Nora Brennan on the court documents, but I stopped using that name the day my husband admitted he'd never actually loved me. This is the story of how I went from a woman declared unfit to raise her own children to the person who destroyed an entire family's legacy with a single phone call. And the most beautiful part? They never saw it coming. If you're someone who believes that good people finish last, that the rich and powerful always win, that mothers who lose their children never get them back, then stay with me. Because you're about to see what happens when people mistake quietness for weakness. When they confuse humility with helplessness. I need you to do me a favor before we really get into this. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this one. And comment below telling me if you've ever been underestimated by someone who thought they knew your worth. Because that's what this is really about. But let me start from the beginning. I was 24 when I met Tyler Brennan at a community library. Not a Barnes & Noble. Not some trendy coffee shop. A public library where I was volunteering to teach adult literacy classes. He walked in wearing jeans and a t-shirt, holding a worn copy of a programming manual, and asked if I knew anything about Python coding. I didn't. But I knew how to find resources, how to connect people with the right teachers. That's what I did. I helped people. He came back the next week. And the week after that. By month 3, he'd asked me to dinner. Tyler was different from anyone I'd ever known. Quiet. Thoughtful. He worked as a junior developer at a small tech company, lived in a modest apartment, drove a 10-year-old sedan. His mother called him every Sunday. His father had passed away when he was young, and he spoke about family like it was sacred. I fell in love with that version of him. The version who said he wanted a partner, not a trophy. Who said he valued kindness over money. Who proposed to me in that same library, on one knee between the biography section and the children's books, with a simple silver band that cost him 2 weeks of salary. I said yes because I believed in us. I believed in building something real, something that wasn't about appearances or wealth or impressing anyone. Just 2 people choosing each other every single day. What Tyler didn't know is that I came from money. Serious money. The kind that most people only see in documentaries about tech billionaires. My father, James Ashford, had built one of the first successful cloud computing companies in the early 2000s. Sold it for close to $1 billion when I was 19. And then he did something that confused everyone who knew him. He put my inheritance into a trust with conditions. I was sitting in his hospital room when he explained it. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer had taken him from healthy to dying in 6 months. He held my hand with fingers that had grown thin and weak, and he said words I'll never forget. "Nora, I'm giving you a gift. But you won't receive it until you're 35. Until then, you live like everyone else. You work. You struggle. You learn who loves you when you have nothing to offer but yourself. Because money shows you who people pretend to be. Poverty shows you who they really are." The trust was worth $700 million. And I couldn't touch a single dollar until my 35th birthday. I agreed to his terms because I understood what he was trying to teach me. My mother had died when I was young, married to my father for his money, divorced him when his first company failed, then came crawling back when he succeeded. He'd spent his whole life surrounded by people who loved his wallet, not his heart. He didn't want that life for me. So I lived simply. I worked as a social services coordinator making $42,000 a year. I rented a small apartment. I shopped at thrift stores and clipped coupons and learned to make meals stretch across multiple days. And I never told Tyler. Not because I wanted to deceive him, but because I wanted to know that what we were building was real. That he chose me for me, not for what I could give him. We got married in a courthouse with 2 witnesses. His mother, Victoria, didn't attend. She'd made it clear from the beginning that I wasn't good enough for her son. Not polished enough. Not ambitious enough. Not from the right kind of family. But Tyler said he didn't care what she thought. He said we were a team. I believed him. We had Sophie 2 years later. Owen came 18 months after that. And for 6 beautiful years, I thought I'd proven my father wrong. I thought I'd found people who loved me exactly as I was. My 35th birthday was 31 days away when everything fell apart. What do you think happened next? Drop your guesses in the comments. Asterisk, asterisk. Tyler changed 3 weeks after Owen was born. Not dramatically. Not in a way I could point to and say, there. That's when it started. Just small shifts. He started taking calls from his mother in the other room. Started coming home later from work. Started questioning my decisions about the kids. Mom says you shouldn't breastfeed Owen past 6 months. It makes children too dependent. Mom thinks Sophie should be in private preschool, not that community program. Mom says we should move closer to her. She could help more. I brushed it off. New mothers are supposed to be exhausted and emotional, right? I was working part-time, handling 2 kids under 3, trying to keep our household running on Tyler's salary and my reduced income. Of course I was sensitive. Victoria started visiting more often. Every Sunday turned into every Sunday and Wednesday. Then she had a key for emergencies. Then she was showing up unannounced. I came home from the grocery store one afternoon to find her reorganizing my kitchen. The way you had these arranged was inefficient, she said, not looking up from the cabinet she was rearranging. I don't know how you find anything. Sophie, who was 4 at the time, sat at the table coloring quietly. Too quietly. My daughter was never quiet. Did Grandma Victoria give you something to do, sweetie? I asked. Sophie nodded. She said I needed to practice staying in the lines. That my coloring was messy. My daughter was 4 years old. I wanted to say something. But Tyler worked for a company his mother had connections to. She'd helped him get the job. She reminded us of this regularly. I just want to help, Victoria would say whenever I gently pushed back. You're doing your best, dear, but you didn't have a mother to teach you these things. Let me share what I know. My mother had died when I was 8. Victoria knew exactly where to press. So I let her rearrange my kitchen. I let her criticize my parenting. I let her treat my home like it was hers because I thought I was being mature. Compromising. Keeping the peace for Tyler's sake. I didn't realize I was being trained. Trained to accept her intrusion. Trained to doubt myself. Trained to believe that her involvement was normal, even necessary. The first real crack appeared when Sophie was 5 and Owen was 3. I'd planned Sophie's birthday party at our apartment. Nothing fancy. Just a few kids from her kindergarten class, homemade cake, games in the park nearby. I'd saved for 2 months to afford the decorations and party favors. Victoria showed up 2 hours before the party with a professional event planner. I've rescheduled the party for the country club, she announced. This apartment is too small, and those park facilities are filthy. I've already contacted the parents with the new location. I stared at her. You did what? You should be thanking me, Nora. I'm saving you from embarrassment. What would those parents think, seeing how you live? Tyler came out of the bedroom where he'd been wrapping presents. Mom, we talked about this. You said you'd let Nora handle Sophie's party. And I am letting her handle it. At a proper venue. Victoria smiled at him. Darling, you can't possibly think this is appropriate for your daughter. Your daughter. Not our daughter. Tyler looked at me. Then at his mother. Then back at me. Maybe it would be nice to have more space, he said quietly. Something cracked in my chest. Not broke. Just cracked. A hairline fracture I told myself I could live with. The party at the country club was beautiful. Professional. The other parents were impressed. Sophie had fun, even though she'd asked me twice why we weren't going to the park like I'd promised. Victoria posted photos on social media, tagged herself as Grandma Victoria, and wrote, "Nothing but the best for my grandbabies." 47 people liked it. I wasn't tagged in a single photo. After that, Victoria's involvement accelerated. She enrolled Sophie in activities without asking me, bought Owen clothes, and then criticized the ones I'd chosen. Started talking about how hard it must be for Tyler to support a family on one income when I was only working part-time. "You know, dear, some women are natural mothers," she said one afternoon while I was folding laundry. "They just have that instinct. And some women have to work harder at it. There's no shame in needing help." Tyler was in the room. He said nothing. The psychological warfare was so subtle I didn't recognize it as warfare. She never yelled. Never threw insults. Just small observations. Gentle suggestions. Concerned questions. "Sophie seems tired lately. Are you sure she's getting enough sleep? Owen's speech is a bit delayed, isn't it? My friend's grandson had therapy for that. You look exhausted, Nora. Maybe you're trying to do too much." And every single comment was delivered in front of Tyler. Training him too. Teaching him to see me through her eyes. I started doubting everything. Was I feeding my kids the right foods? Reading to them enough? Stimulating their development properly? Other mothers made it look easy. Why was I always so tired? I didn't realize that other mothers didn't have someone documenting their every perceived failure. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I'd taken Sophie to the pediatrician for a routine checkup. She'd been complaining about stomach aches, and I wanted to make sure everything was okay. The doctor said it was probably stress or anxiety, which seemed impossible. She was 5 years old. What did she have to be stressed about? "Sometimes children pick up on household tension," the doctor said carefully. "Any changes at home? Arguments? New people around?" I thought about Victoria's constant presence. About how Sophie had started asking why Grandma was always there. About how Owen had begun crying whenever I left the room, like he was afraid I wouldn't come back. "My mother-in-law helps out a lot," I said. The doctor nodded slowly. Sometimes help can feel overwhelming to children. They need consistency. Stability. To know who's in charge. I came home and found Victoria there. Again. She'd used her key. She was making dinner in my kitchen while my children sat watching television. "Owen was hungry," she explained. "I hope you don't mind. I know you've been so busy with Sophie's appointment." Something in me snapped. "Victoria, I need you to leave." She turned from the stove, wooden spoon in hand, expression perfectly pleasant. "Excuse me. I appreciate your help. But I need you to leave. And I need the key back." Her face transformed. Not into anger. Into hurt. Wounded, shocked hurt. "Tyler," she called out, voice shaking. "Tyler, come here please." He emerged from the home office where he'd been working remotely. "Your wife is asking me to leave. After I came here to help. After I've done nothing but support this family." Her eyes filled with tears. "I've tried so hard, Tyler. But she's never wanted me involved. She's never appreciated anything I've done for you. For my grandchildren." I watched it happen in real time. Watched Tyler's expression shift from confusion to sympathy. Watched him move toward his mother, not me. "Nora, what's going on?" "I just asked for space," I said. "The doctor said Sophie might be stressed, and I think we need to establish better boundaries." "The doctor?" Victoria's voice rose. "You're taking parenting advice from a doctor instead of from family? From someone who's actually raised children successfully?" "Mom, calm down," Tyler said, but he was looking at me like I'd done something wrong. "I won't calm down. I've watched this girl struggle to care for my grandchildren for years. I've stepped in because someone had to. And now she wants to cut me out? What kind of mother does that? What kind of mother refuses help when she clearly needs it?" That word. Clearly. Like my need for help was obvious to everyone. "Tyler, say something," I pleaded. He ran his hand through his hair. Looked at his crying mother. Looked at me. "Maybe we're all just tired. Mom, maybe give us a few days. Nora, we can talk about this tonight." Victoria left, but not before hugging Sophie and Owen like she might never see them again. Sophie asked why Grandma was sad. Owen started crying because Sophie was upset. That night, Tyler and I had our first real fight. "She's trying to help," he said. "Why can't you just accept that?" She's taking over. There's a difference. You're being paranoid. She loves those kids. I love those kids. I'm their mother. Then act like it. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at him, this man I'd married, this man who'd promised to be my partner. What does that mean? It means maybe if you weren't so defensive all the time, you'd see that my mother is right. We're struggling. You're overwhelmed. She's offering help, and you're too proud to take it. I'm not overwhelmed. I'm being undermined. But the seed was planted. In him. In me. What if I was the problem? Victoria stayed away for exactly 1 week. Then she called Tyler crying. She'd fallen, she said. Hurt her ankle. Could he possibly come help her? He went immediately. Came back 3 hours later. She's alone in that house, Nora. Dad's been gone for years. We're all she has. The guilt worked perfectly. She came back. Slowly at first. Then constantly. And I stopped fighting because fighting made me look unreasonable. Ungrateful. Unstable. I didn't know I was being set up. I didn't know that every refused offer of help, every boundary I tried to set, every moment of frustration was being carefully documented in Victoria's mind. Building a case. Constructing a narrative. The poor, struggling mother who couldn't handle her own children. Who refused help from loving family. Who was clearly unfit. My 35th birthday was 4 months away when Tyler came home and said he wanted a divorce. He said it in the kitchen while I was making lunch for the kids. I can't do this anymore. I turned from the counter, peanut butter knife still in my hand. Can't do what? This. Us. He wouldn't look at me. I want a divorce. The word hung in the air between us like something physical. Sophie was in the living room watching cartoons. Owen was napping. Everything was normal, and then it wasn't. Why? It was the only word I could form. We're not compatible. We never have been. I've tried, Nora. But you're not the person I thought you were. Not the person he thought I was. After 7 years of marriage. After 2 children. After building a life together. Is there someone else? No. He said it too quickly. This isn't about anyone else. It's about us. About me realizing I married the wrong person. I should have demanded answers. Should have fought. But I was holding a knife covered in peanut butter. My daughter was singing along to a cartoon in the next room, and my husband was ending our marriage like he was canceling a subscription service. What about Sophie and Owen? We'll figure it out. We'll co-parent. I'm not trying to hurt them. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just can't keep pretending anymore. Pretending. Like our entire marriage had been performance. He moved out 2 days later. Went to stay with Victoria, which should have been my first warning. A grown man running back to his mother's house. But I was too shocked to see the pattern yet. My friend Rachel came over the night he left. She'd been my closest friend since college, one of the few people who knew about my trust fund because she'd known my father. Are you going to tell him? She asked while we sat on my couch, wine glasses in hand, my kids finally asleep. Tell him what? About the money. About the trust. It activates in 4 months, Nora. I'd almost forgotten. My 35th birthday. The $700 million that would finally be mine. No, I said. What difference would it make now? It might make him reconsider. Exactly. And then I'd spend the rest of my life wondering if he came back for me or for the money. Rachel studied me. You still love him. I did. God help me, I still loved the man who was leaving me. Still believed that maybe we could work it out. That this was a phase, a crisis, something we could overcome. I was so stupid. Tyler's lawyer contacted me a week later. He wanted to keep things simple. Amicable. No fighting. Just a clean division of assets and a fair custody arrangement. I agreed because I wanted to be reasonable. Because I didn't want my kids caught in the middle of a war. My lawyer, a kind woman named Patricia who I could barely afford, reviewed the proposed agreement. He's asking for 50-50 custody, she said. Alternating weeks. That seems fair, I said. It also means no child support from either party. You'd be responsible for all expenses during your weeks. He'd be responsible during his. I did the math in my head. Tyler made $90,000 a year now. He'd gotten promoted twice, since working at the company Victoria had connected him with. I was making $42,000 working full-time again now that Owen was in preschool. I can manage, I said. Patricia looked at me over her glasses. Nora, you're entitled to support. The income disparity is significant. I don't want his money. I just want my kids to have both parents without hating each other. She sighed, but drafted the response accepting his terms. Victoria called me 3 days later. Her voice was warm, almost friendly. Nora, dear. I know things are difficult right now, but I want you to know I don't blame you for any of this. The condescension dripped through the phone. Tyler and I have been talking, she continued, and we think it's important that the children have stability during this transition. So I've offered to help during his custody weeks, to make sure they have consistency. That's between you and Tyler, I said. Of course. I just wanted you to know that I'll be very involved in their lives. As their grandmother, it's my responsibility to make sure they're properly cared for. Properly cared for. Another small cut. The divorce moved quickly. No assets to divide beyond our minimal savings and cheap furniture. No house we owned together. Just paperwork and signatures and the end of everything I'd believed in. Tyler was pleasant through all of it. Polite. We met at coffee shops to discuss logistics. He asked about my work. Commented on how mature we were being. See, he said during one of these meetings. We can do this. We can put the kids first. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that divorce didn't have to mean destruction. On his first custody week, he picked up Sophie and Owen on Sunday evening. They had their backpacks ready, favorite stuffed animals tucked under their arms. Sophie hugged me tight. I'll miss you, Mommy. It's just 1 week, baby. Then you'll be back. But when the door closed behind them, the apartment felt like a tomb. I worked during that week. Came home to silence. Texted Tyler to ask how the kids were doing. He responded with brief updates and photos. Sophie at the park. Owen eating breakfast. Everything seemed fine. Until I went to pick them up the following Sunday. Victoria answered Tyler's apartment door. Oh, Nora. Come in. The children are just finishing lunch. I stepped into an apartment I'd never seen before. It was nice. Too nice for Tyler's salary. Furniture that looked expensive. A flat-screen television. Toys everywhere. Sophie and Owen sat at a dining table eating what looked like a catered meal. Mommy. Owen scrambled down and ran to me. I scooped him up, breathing in his little boy smell. Sophie came over more slowly. Did you have a good week? I asked. Grandma Victoria took us to the zoo, Sophie said. And to a movie. And we got new toys. Victoria stood in the doorway to the kitchen, smiling. I like to spoil them. They deserve nice things. The implication was clear. Things I couldn't provide. This pattern continued. Every week with Tyler became a week of activities I couldn't afford. Zoo trips. Movies. New toys. New clothes. Swimming lessons at an expensive facility. Art classes at a private studio. During my weeks, we went to the free library story time. Played at public parks. Made crafts with supplies from the dollar store. I told myself it didn't matter. That my kids loved me. That time together was more valuable than money spent. But Sophie started making comments. Why don't we have a big TV like Daddy's? Can we go to the zoo on your week too? Grandma Victoria says she's going to take us to Disneyland. Are you coming? Each question felt like a small failure. 2 months into our custody arrangement, Tyler asked to meet for coffee. The kids seem stressed, he said. Going back and forth every week. They're adjusting. It takes time. My therapist thinks the transitions are too frequent. That they need more stability. Your therapist? I didn't know he was seeing a therapist. Mom suggested it. To help me process the divorce. He stirred his coffee. She thinks 2-week blocks would be better for the kids. Less disruption. 2 weeks without seeing my children. I don't think that's a good idea. It's not about what we think. It's about what's best for Sophie and Owen. He leaned forward. Come on, Nora. We said we'd put them first. He was using my own words against me. My own commitment to being reasonable. Let me think about it, I said. I called Patricia that night. Don't agree to anything without a court order, she advised. Informal arrangements can be modified too easily. But Tyler was so insistent. So reasonable. He sent me articles about custody transitions and child psychology. Had his therapist's recommendations sent to me. And I was tired. So tired of fighting. Of being painted as difficult every time I tried to maintain boundaries. I agreed to 2-week blocks. The first 2 weeks without my kids nearly destroyed me. I worked, came home, stared at their empty beds, texted Tyler constantly for updates. His responses became less frequent. They're fine. Busy with activities. I'll have them call you later. Later never came. When they finally came back to me, something had shifted. Sophie was quieter. Owen clung to me but also seemed distant, like he'd started forgetting what our routine was. Did you have fun? I asked. Daddy said we might go live with him all the time, Sophie said. And Grandma Victoria. She said she could take better care of us. My blood went cold. What? She said it's hard for you. That you work a lot. That maybe we should live with Daddy so you don't have to worry so much. She was poisoning my children against me. And Tyler was letting it happen. I called him immediately. Your mother is talking to the kids about changing custody. She's just thinking out loud. You know how she is. Tyler, this isn't okay. You need to shut this down. You're being paranoid again, Nora. This is why we couldn't make it work. You're always assuming the worst. I'm protecting my children. From what? From family who loves them. We hung up angry. It was our first real fight since the divorce. I should have known then. Should have seen what was coming. But my 35th birthday was 2 weeks away. The trust would activate. I'd have resources to fight back if I needed to get a better lawyer. To prove I could provide everything Victoria could. I just had to hold on a little longer. Then Tyler filed for emergency custody. The petition arrived on a Thursday. Emergency modification of custody. Tyler was asking for full temporary custody while we underwent a formal evaluation. The reasons listed made my hands shake. Mother's increasingly erratic behavior. Inability to provide stable living environment. Concerns about emotional well-being and capacity to meet children's basic needs. There was a hearing scheduled for 3 days later. I called Patricia in a panic. They can't just take my kids, right? Not without proof. In emergency hearings, the bar is lower. They just need to show potential harm. She paused. What evidence could they have, Nora? Nothing. There is no evidence because I haven't done anything wrong. But I was already thinking through everything. Every time I'd been short-tempered because I was exhausted. Every meal that had been cereal for dinner because money was tight. Every time I'd let them watch an extra hour of TV because I needed to finish work. Were those signs of being unfit? We'll fight this, Patricia said. Get me any documentation you have. Pediatrician records, school reports, anything that shows the kids are healthy and thriving in your care. I gathered everything I could. Sophie's kindergarten progress reports showing she was doing well. Owen's preschool assessments. Photos of us together, smiling, happy. It felt obscene, having to prove I was a good mother. The hearing was in family court. Tyler sat with his lawyer, an expensive-looking man in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Victoria sat behind them, her face arranged in an expression of concerned grandmother. I sat with Patricia, wearing my best work clothes, trying not to look as terrified as I felt. Tyler's lawyer went first. Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned about his children's welfare during their time with their mother. Over the past 2 months, he's observed significant changes in their behavior following her custody periods. He presented a report from Tyler's therapist. Not about Tyler. About concerns Tyler had raised about me. The therapist noted, father reports children return from mother's care anxious, hungry, and emotionally dysregulated. Mother has become increasingly defensive when father attempts to discuss concerns. Pattern suggests potential neglect and instability. I never spoke to that therapist, I whispered to Patricia. They don't have to speak to you to report what Tyler told them, she whispered back. Tyler's lawyer continued. We have additional concerns about the living environment. Ms. Brennan's apartment is in a deteriorating building in a high-crime area. The children share a bedroom with insufficient space for their needs. Neighbors have reported hearing the children crying at night. That's not true, I said too loudly. The judge looked at me. You'll have your turn to speak, Ms. Brennan. Victoria was called to testify. She walked to the stand like she was heading to church. dignified, concerned, loving. I've tried so hard to support Nora, she said, her voice wavering slightly. After my son told me he wanted a divorce, I reached out to her multiple times. Offered to help with childcare, with finances, with anything she needed. But she became hostile. Accused me of trying to take her children. Did you ever witness concerning behavior directly? Tyler's lawyer asked. Yes. The children come to Tyler's home hungry. Sophie told me that sometimes there's no food in the house. Owen has had the same shoes for 6 months even though they're too small. I've bought them clothes because the ones Nora sends them in are stained and worn. Each word was technically true but stripped of context. Yes, Sophie had said we were out of her favorite snacks. Yes, Owen's shoes were getting tight and I was waiting until payday to replace them. Yes, their play clothes had stains because children get dirty. But the way Victoria told it, I was starving and neglecting my children. I love those children, Victoria said, tears forming. I'm only thinking of what's best for them. And right now, I don't believe they're safe with their mother. Patricia cross-examined her, but Victoria was prepared. She had an answer for everything that made her sound reasonable and made me sound unstable. Then it was my turn. I explained that the children were healthy, that we had food, that I was working full-time and managing, that my apartment was small but clean and safe. Tyler's lawyer asked me about my income. $42,000 a year. And your rent. $1,400 a month. That leaves you with approximately $1,100 per month after rent for all other expenses. Utilities, food, clothing, transportation, childcare. Is that correct? I manage. Do you? Or do your children go without because you're too proud to accept help? I'm not too proud. I'm their mother. I take care of them. By feeding them cereal for dinner? My stomach dropped. How did he know that? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes dinner is simple because you can't afford to feed them properly. That's not what I said. But the damage was done. I could see it on the judge's face. Tyler testified that he was worried. That the kids seemed different after my weeks. That Sophie had started having nightmares. That Owen had become clingy. I just want what's best for them, he said, and he sounded so sincere. So genuinely concerned. This was the man I'd married. The man I'd trusted. And he was using our children as weapons. The judge took a 15-minute recess to review the materials. When she came back, her expression was grave. I'm granting temporary primary custody to the father pending a full evaluation. Mother will have supervised visitation twice per week, 2 hours per session. The courtroom tilted. Your Honor, Patricia started. This is temporary, the judge continued. But the concerns raised warrant a thorough investigation. I'm ordering a full custody evaluation to be completed within 60 days. Both parents will undergo psychological evaluation, home studies, and interviews. The children will meet with a child psychologist. Supervised visitation. 2 hours. Twice a week. I'd gone from half of my children's lives to 4 hours a week. With someone watching my every interaction to make sure I was safe. Tyler was awarded custody that same day. I had to hand my children over right there in the courthouse. Sophie was confused. Why can't we go home with you, Mommy? You're going to stay with Daddy for a little while longer, I managed to say. But I'll see you very soon. I love you so much. Owen clung to my neck. Want Mommy? I know, baby. I know. Tyler had to pry him off me. My son screamed. Reached for me. And I had to stand there and watch them leave. Victoria put her arm around Tyler as they walked away with my children. She looked back at me once. And she smiled. That was 10 days before my 35th birthday. I went home to an empty apartment and finally broke down. Called Rachel sobbing so hard I could barely speak. They took them. They took my babies. Oh, Nora. She was crying too. What do you need? What can I do? I don't know. I don't know what to do. Tell Tyler about the trust. Tell the court. Show them you can provide everything they're claiming you can't. And look like I've been lying for years? They'll say I'm manipulative. Deceptive. It'll make everything worse. But she was right about one thing. I needed better legal help than Patricia could provide. I met with a high-powered family attorney named David Romero 2 days later. His retainer alone was $25,000. I had $3,000 in my savings account. I can pay you in 2 weeks, I said. I'm coming into money. A trust fund. I can give you a portion up front and the rest on my birthday. He looked at the custody petition. At the judge's order. At me. Ms. Brennan, I'm going to be honest with you. This is bad. You're starting from a position of having already lost temporary custody. You're facing allegations of neglect. And you're claiming to have access to significant funds, but can't prove it. My father's attorney can verify. It doesn't matter. What matters is what the custody evaluator sees. And right now, they're going to see exactly what your ex-husband wants them to see. He slid the papers back across his desk. I'd be taking your money for a case I'm not sure I can win. I left his office feeling hopeless. The first supervised visit was scheduled for Saturday. I had to go to a family visitation center where a social worker would monitor my interaction with my own children. Sophie and Owen arrived with Tyler. They ran to me, and I held them like I'd been drowning and they were air. Okay, kids, why don't you show Mommy what you brought? The supervisor said brightly. They'd brought coloring books. We sat at a small table in a room that smelled like industrial cleaner and tried to pretend everything was normal. Do you like staying at Daddy's? I asked carefully, aware the supervisor was noting everything. It's okay, Sophie said. Grandma Victoria is there a lot. She lives there now, Owen added. My head snapped up. She what? She moved into Daddy's apartment, Sophie explained. She says she needs to take care of us. Victoria had moved in with Tyler. Was living with my children full-time. Does she sleep there every night? I asked. Sophie nodded. She has the guest room. The supervisor was writing notes. For 2 hours, I colored and read books and answered my children's questions about when they could come home. I lied and said soon. I lied and said everything would be okay. When time was up, Owen didn't want to leave. Please, Mommy. I want to go with you. I know, sweetie. But you have to go with Daddy right now. I'll see you on Tuesday. Tyler collected them with an apologetic expression that I wanted to scrape off his face. The supervisor asked to speak with me privately. I have to ask you some questions for my report. Do you have food insecurity? Difficulty providing meals? No. We always have food. The children mentioned eating cereal for dinner. Once. Maybe twice when I was exhausted and couldn't cook. That doesn't mean I'm starving them. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm gathering information. She made a note. Do you have family support? Friends who help with childcare? My friend Rachel sometimes watches them when I'm working. And your relationship with the paternal grandmother? Complicated. Can you elaborate? How could I explain Victoria's campaign against me without sounding paranoid? Without sounding like exactly what they wanted me to sound like? She's very involved. Sometimes too involved. We have different parenting styles. More notes? I left that visit feeling like I'd failed some test I didn't know I was taking. My second visit was worse. Sophie seemed withdrawn. Owen asked why he couldn't just stay with me. Grandma Victoria says you're sick, Sophie said quietly. Are you sick, Mommy? No, baby. I'm not sick. Why would she say that? She said that's why we can't be with you right now. That you need to get better. I wanted to scream. But the supervisor was watching. Evaluating. Judging. I'm perfectly healthy, I said calmly. Sometimes adults disagree about things, and that's what's happening. But I'm not sick, and I love you very much. But the seed was planted. Victoria was telling my children I was unwell, preparing them to accept that their mother was unfit. My birthday was 5 days away. I tried to focus on that, on the fact that soon I'd have resources. I could hire David Romero, could get a bigger apartment, could prove I was capable. But a voice in my head kept whispering, what if it's too late? What if showing the money now just proves you've been lying? What if they've already decided you're unfit and no amount of money will change that? Tyler texted me 3 days before my birthday. We need to talk. Can you meet me tomorrow? I agreed to meet at a coffee shop. He was already there when I arrived. And he wasn't alone. A woman sat next to him. Pretty. Professional. Her hand rested on his arm in a way that spoke of intimacy. Nora, this is Amanda, Tyler said. My girlfriend. The world stuttered. You're what? We've been seeing each other for a few months. I wanted you to meet her because she's been spending time with Sophie and Owen. She's great with them. A few months. We'd been divorced for 3 months total. You told me there wasn't anyone else. There wasn't. When we separated, Amanda and I met after. He had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. I know this is hard, but I want us all to be adults about this. For the kids. Amanda smiled at me. I've heard so much about you. Tyler says you're a wonderful mother. The condescension. The performance. How long have you been around my children? About 6 weeks, she said. They're wonderful kids. 6 weeks. Tyler had introduced his girlfriend to our children while he was building a case against me. While he was claiming I was unfit. Why are you telling me this? I asked Tyler. Because I want to be honest. And because I want you to know that Sophie and Owen are in good hands. Amanda is a child psychologist. She's been helping me understand their needs better. A child psychologist. Living with my ex-husband. Around my children. Probably the one feeding him all the terminology about emotional dysregulation and anxiety. This is about the custody case, I said. You're building the perfect alternative home. Stable father. New partner with relevant credentials. Involved grandmother. Everything I can't provide. This isn't about the case, Tyler said. This is about what's best for the kids. You're right, Amanda interjected gently. This must be difficult for you. But we really are trying to create a loving environment for Sophie and Owen. Maybe once you've had time to process, we could all have dinner together. The performance was flawless. They looked like the reasonable ones. The mature ones trying to co-parent. And I looked like the bitter ex-wife who couldn't accept reality. I stood up. Stay away from my children. Nora, Tyler started. You don't get to do this. You don't get to take them and replace me and act like you're doing me a favor. People were staring. I was making a scene. Exactly what I couldn't afford to do. I left before I said something that would end up in a court report. I sat in my car and called Rachel. He has a girlfriend. A child psychologist. She's been around the kids for weeks. Oh, Nora. They're building the perfect case. I can't compete with this. Even with the money. They have everything. You have something they don't. What? You're their mother. The real one. Not the replacement. Not the grandmother trying to steal them. You. But I wasn't sure that was enough anymore. My birthday was in 2 days. The trust would activate. And I had no idea if revealing it would save me or destroy what little credibility I had left. I went to my second supervised visit feeling like I was walking through fog. Sophie asked if I'd met Miss Amanda. I did. She's nice. She plays games with us. Grandma Victoria says she might be our new mommy someday. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about custody. It was about replacement. About erasing me completely and giving my children to Victoria, Tyler, and Amanda. The perfect family. With me reduced to 4 supervised hours a week. Then maybe 2. Then maybe none. A woman who lost custody was a woman who could lose all parental rights. I had 2 days until my birthday. 2 days until $700 million became mine. And I had no idea what to do with it. My 35th birthday fell on a Tuesday. I woke up alone in my apartment, no children singing happy birthday, no little hands shaking me awake with homemade cards. Just silence and the notification on my phone from my father's attorney. The trust has been activated. Please contact our office to begin the transfer process. $700 million. Available immediately. I stared at the message for 20 minutes. If I claimed it now, I could hire the best attorneys in the country. Could move into a house with a yard and separate bedrooms for both kids. Could prove to any evaluator that I could provide everything Tyler and Victoria could and more. But I'd also have to explain where this money came from. Why I'd hidden it. Why I'd lived in poverty while sitting on a fortune. The custody evaluator would want answers. Tyler's lawyer would twist it into evidence of deception and instability. Or I could wait. Keep living as I had been. Let the evaluation proceed based on who I appeared to be right now. And likely lose my children permanently. I called my father's attorney, Gerald Walsh. Happy birthday, Nora, he said warmly. Your father would be proud of you. You completed the terms of the trust. I need advice, Gerald. Legal advice about family law. I explained the custody situation. The allegations. The supervised visits. The evaluation pending. He was quiet for a long moment. If you reveal the trust now, it will raise questions. The opposing counsel will argue you've been deceptive, living in false poverty while your children went without. But I didn't let them go without. We had everything we needed. That's not how it will be presented. They'll say you prioritized a test over your children's well-being, that you're manipulative and potentially unstable. He paused. However, if you don't reveal it and lose custody, you'll have $700 million and no children to share it with. The impossible choice my father never could have anticipated. What would you do? I asked. I'd fight like hell, with every resource available. Your father built this fortune, so you'd never be powerless. Don't be powerless now. I hung up and called David Romero's office. I can pay your retainer today. The full amount. And I need you to file an emergency motion to modify the custody order. I met him that afternoon with a cashier's check for $50,000. His eyebrows raised slightly when I handed it over, but he was professional enough not to ask questions yet. The trust fund I mentioned activated today, I said. I need you to understand something. I'm not a poor woman pretending to be rich. I'm a rich woman who's been living simply because my father required it as a condition of my inheritance. The people trying to take my children have no idea. David leaned back in his chair. How much are we talking about? $700 million. He didn't blink. And you've been living on $42,000 a year while this money existed? Yes. Why? I explained my father's philosophy. The test. The desire to know who loved me for myself. That's going to be a problem, David said carefully. The court will see it as choosing pride over your children's welfare. It wasn't pride. It was principle. Judges don't care about principle when children are involved. They care about stability and sound judgment. He tapped his pen on the desk. But we can work with this. We present you as someone who valued teaching her children authentic values over material wealth. Someone who wanted them to grow up grounded and humble. Not as someone who let them suffer needlessly. They didn't suffer. Opposing counsel will argue they did. Our job is to reframe the narrative before they can. He pulled out a legal pad. We'll file the motion immediately. Request emergency modification based on changed circumstances. But Nora, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. The motion was filed the next day. Tyler's response came within hours. His lawyer called it a desperate attempt to buy her way out of accountability. Claimed I'd been hiding assets during the divorce proceedings and should be investigated for fraud. Requested that my supervised visits be suspended pending investigation of financial deception. The hearing was scheduled for Friday, 2 days away. I went to my supervised visit on Thursday knowing it might be my last for a while. Sophie and Owen seemed different. Distant. Owen barely looked at me. Hey, buddy, I said, kneeling down to his level. Are you okay? He shrugged. Owen, can you talk to Mommy? Grandma Victoria says you lied, Sophie said quietly. About being poor. She says you had lots of money and you just didn't want to spend it on us. My heart stopped. How does she know about that? Daddy told her. He got papers from the court. Grandma Victoria was really upset. She said you let us go hungry when you could have bought us anything. They already knew. Tyler had told Victoria immediately, and Victoria had poisoned my children against me. Sophie, baby, that's not what happened. I can explain. You're rich. Her little face was confused and hurt. We could have had a big house like Daddy's? The supervisor was taking notes rapidly. It's complicated, sweetie. I was trying to teach you important things about. You lied, Sophie said, and she sounded like she was repeating words she'd heard. Grandma Victoria says lying is wrong. That mommies who lie don't deserve their kids. Owen started crying. Not because he was sad. Because Sophie was upset. I tried to salvage the visit, but Sophie wouldn't engage with me. She sat with her arms crossed, looking betrayed. Owen followed her lead, as he always did. When Tyler came to pick them up, Sophie ran to him. I don't want to come back here, she said loudly enough for the supervisor to hear. I want to stay with you and Grandma Victoria and Miss Amanda. Tyler met my eyes over her head. He didn't look triumphant. He looked almost sad. Almost. The supervisor asked to speak with me again after they left. I have to include Sophie's statements in my report. You understand that? She's 6 years old, repeating things she's been told. Perhaps. But a 6-year-old's feelings are still valid. She closed her notebook. Ms. Brennan, I'm going to be honest with you. This revelation about hidden assets doesn't look good. It suggests a pattern of deception and questionable judgment. I wasn't hiding anything. It was a trust with conditions that you chose not to disclose to your husband or the court during divorce proceedings. I didn't have access to it during the divorce, but you knew it existed. That's a material fact that should have been disclosed. She stood. I'm recommending that visits be suspended until the financial investigation is complete. I drove home in a daze. Called David. They've already turned the kids against me. And now they're suspending visits. The hearing is tomorrow. We fight back then. He paused. I need to ask you something. During your divorce, did you fill out financial disclosure forms? Yes. I listed what I had. My salary, my savings. Did the forms ask about trusts or inheritances? I tried to remember. I don't think so. It asked about current assets and income. Then technically, you didn't lie. The trust wasn't yours until today. You couldn't access it, couldn't control it, and weren't receiving benefits from it. His voice brightened slightly. That's our angle. You disclosed everything you legally had to disclose. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Sophie's face. The betrayal in her eyes. She was 6 years old and thought I'd chosen poverty over her comfort. How could I explain to a 6-year-old what I barely understood myself anymore? My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A text from an unknown number. You should see what they're really planning. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. Tyler's apartment. Come to the door but don't knock. Just listen. No name. No explanation. I stared at the message. It could be a trap. Could be Tyler's lawyer setting me up to look like a stalker. But what did I have to lose? I was there at 8:55 a.m., standing in the hallway outside Tyler's apartment. My hands were shaking. This was insane. If someone saw me, it would be more evidence of instability. At exactly 9 a.m., I heard voices inside. Victoria. Tyler. And a man I didn't recognize. I pressed my ear to the door. Filed this morning, the unfamiliar voice said. The petition for permanent adoption will go through quickly given the existing custody order. My blood turned to ice. And Nora won't be able to fight it? That was Victoria. Not effectively. She's already been deemed temporarily unfit. The financial deception sealed it. The judge will see a pattern of manipulation and poor judgment. Papers rustled. Once the adoption is finalized, her parental rights are permanently terminated. She'll have no legal standing. What if she uses the money to fight? Tyler asked. He sounded uncertain. Let her try, Victoria said coldly. She'll look even worse. A woman who had millions while claiming poverty, now throwing money at lawyers to steal back children who've clearly stated they want to stay with their father. No judge will side with her. I don't know, Mom. This feels wrong. Tyler. Victoria's voice was sharp. We discussed this. Those children deserve stability. A proper mother. Amanda is perfect for them. Young, educated, actually present in their lives. Nora had her chance. But the money. The money proves she never deserved them. What kind of mother chooses some philosophical test over her children's well-being? She's exactly who I always knew she was. Selfish. Manipulative. Unsuitable. The adoption petition is already filed? Tyler asked quietly. This morning, the lawyer confirmed. She'll be served within 48 hours. She'll have 14 days to respond, but frankly, her case is nearly impossible to win at this point. When can we move forward with Amanda's adoption petition? Victoria asked. Once Nora's rights are terminated, Amanda can file a step-parent. Given her credentials and the children's existing bond with her, it should be straightforward. They were erasing me. Completely. Permanently. And they'd planned it all along. I still think we should offer her a settlement, Tyler said. Maybe supervised visits twice a month. Something so she doesn't fight. No. Victoria was firm. Clean break. Those children don't need confusion about who their mother is. Amanda will be their mother. Nora will be a cautionary tale we tell them when they're older about the woman who couldn't be what they needed. I stopped listening. backed away from the door on legs that barely held me. They were filing for adoption, for permanent termination of my parental rights. I had 14 days once I was served, and Victoria had already convinced my children I was a liar who didn't love them enough. I made it to my car before I started hyperventilating, fumbled for my phone, called Rachel. "They're filing for adoption," I gasped out. "Permanent. They're taking them forever." "Nora, breathe. Slow down. I can't lose them." "Rachel, I can't." "You won't. You have resources now. You can fight." "With what?" "My kids hate me. Think I let them suffer on purpose. The court thinks I'm a liar. Victoria has them convinced Amanda should be their mother." "Then you fight harder. You show up to that hearing tomorrow and you burn their case to the ground." But I didn't know how. Didn't know what evidence I had that could counter their narrative. A mother who hid wealth. Who lived in poverty by choice. Who let her children go without when she could have given them everything. How did I explain that my father's test had been about love, not deprivation? That I'd wanted to teach my children values that transcended money? It sounded hollow even to my own ears now. I went home and pulled out every photo I had of me and the kids. Every drawing they'd made me. Every Mother's Day card. Looking for proof that they'd loved me. That we'd been happy. But Victoria would say I'd manipulated them. That children love even abusive parents. That their happiness in photos didn't mean they were properly cared for. There was a knock on my door at 6 p.m. A process server handed me an envelope. Petition for permanent adoption. Victoria Brennan and Tyler Brennan seeking to adopt Sophie Marie Brennan and Owen James Brennan. Below, in smaller text, petition for termination of parental rights of Nora Ashford Brennan on grounds of abandonment, neglect, and unfitness. I had 14 days to respond. The hearing for the emergency custody modification was tomorrow. But it didn't matter anymore. Even if I won that hearing, even if I got my custody back, Victoria had already filed for adoption. The process was in motion. And my children thought I was a liar who'd chosen money over them. I sat on the floor of my empty apartment, surrounded by pictures of my babies, and realized I'd already lost. The trust my father designed to protect me had destroyed me instead. And Victoria had won. The hearing the next morning was a massacre. Tyler's lawyer came prepared with everything. Bank statements showing the trust activation. Documentation of my father's will and its conditions. A timeline demonstrating that I'd known about the money for 16 years and chosen not to access it. Your Honor, Ms. Brennan made a conscious choice to live in poverty while her children wore shoes that were too small. While they ate cereal for dinner. While she refused help from family who wanted to provide for them. David fought back. My client was fulfilling the legal terms of a trust. She had no access to these funds until her 35th birthday. She disclosed all assets she was legally required to disclose during divorce proceedings. She disclosed her current assets while knowingly concealing a $700 million future inheritance, Tyler's lawyer countered. That's deception by omission. More importantly, it demonstrates a pattern of prioritizing her own agenda over her children's basic needs. The judge looked at me with something like disgust. Ms. Brennan, did you know about this trust throughout your marriage? Yes, Your Honor. And you chose not to tell your husband? I wanted to know that our relationship was built on genuine connection, not financial interest. So you tested him. Used deception to evaluate his character. The judge made a note. And your children? Were they part of this test too? No, Your Honor. They had everything they needed. Did they? Or did they have only what you deemed sufficient while you sat on a fortune? There was no right answer. Anything I said would condemn me further. The custody evaluator's preliminary report was entered into evidence. I watched David's face fall as he read it. He passed it to me. The words blurred together. Concerning pattern of deception. Questionable judgment. Inability to prioritize children's needs over personal principles. Children express preference for father's home. Evidence of emotional manipulation. Recommend custody remain with father pending further evaluation. At the bottom, supervisor noted children's visible distress during last visit. Recommend suspension of visits until psychological evaluation complete. Your Honor, David stood. My client's psychological evaluation is scheduled for next week. Suspending visits based on preliminary concerns is premature. Your client hid $700 million from her family, the judge said flatly. I'd say concerns about her judgment are well-founded. Visits are suspended pending completion of the full evaluation process. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel fell. I'd lost. David walked me out of the courthouse. We can appeal. We can fight the adoption petition. We have resources now. It doesn't matter. My kids think I'm a monster. They're children. They're being manipulated. Once we get you in front of them, once you can explain. I can't explain. How do I make a 6-year-old understand philosophy and principles and why I chose to live the way we did? He had no answer. I went home and the apartment felt like a tomb. I'd lost temporary custody. Lost visitation. My children believed I'd let them suffer on purpose. And Victoria's adoption petition was moving forward. Rachel came over that night with wine and takeout I couldn't eat. You need to pull yourself together, she said, not unkindly. You have 2 weeks to respond to the adoption petition. You need a strategy. What strategy? I'm the terrible mother who chose a dead man's test over her living children's well-being. That's how they see me. That's how everyone sees me. That's how Victoria wants everyone to see you. It's not the truth. Isn't it though? I looked at her. I had access to money that could have made their lives easier. Better schools. A house with a yard. New clothes instead of thrift store finds. And I chose not to use it because of my father's conditions. You were teaching them values. I was being self-righteous. And now I've lost them. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. Sophie is asking why you haven't called. I told her you're dealing with some things. She's upset. I stared at the message. The manipulation was exquisite. He'd taken away my visitation rights, but now made it look like I was choosing not to contact her. I called immediately. Tyler answered. I want to talk to Sophie. I don't think that's a good idea right now. You just texted me that she wants to talk to me. She's confused. You calling will make it worse. Tyler, please. Let me talk to my daughter. The court suspended your visits, Nora. I think we should respect that boundary. Phone calls aren't visits. They're contact. And right now, the kids need stability, not more confusion from you. He hung up. I called back. He didn't answer. I texted, please let me speak to them. I'm begging you. The response came from Victoria's phone number, not Tyler's. Stop harassing this family. You're only making things worse for yourself. Those children are moving on. Let them. I threw my phone across the room. Rachel picked it up, checking for damage. You need to document all of this. Every denied call. Every text. It shows parental alienation. It shows a mother who lost custody and can't accept it. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I'd taken a week off work using sick days, but I was running out. My supervisor had called twice asking when I'd be back. How could I go back to coordinating social services for other families when I couldn't even keep my own children? The psychological evaluation was scheduled for Monday. 5 days away. I spent those 5 days spiraling. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. reaching for children who weren't there. Make breakfast for 2 kids who'd never eat it. Set out clothes for school pickup that would never happen. Rachel practically moved in, terrified I'd do something desperate. You need to eat something, she'd say, pushing food at me. I need my kids. Then fight for them. But you can't fight if you fall apart. But I was already apart. Shattered into pieces I couldn't figure out how to reassemble. The psychological evaluation was conducted by Dr. Miranda Chen, a stern woman with glasses and a notepad that seemed to hold my entire future. She asked about my childhood, my relationship with my father, my marriage, my divorce. Tell me about the decision to hide your financial resources from your husband. I wasn't hiding them. I didn't have access. But you knew they existed. Yes. And you chose not to disclose this to your partner. I wanted to build something real. Not based on money. At your children's expense. They weren't suffering. We had a good life. She made a note. How would you describe your children's living conditions during your custody periods? Modest but adequate. Clean. Safe. Loving. And how would you describe their living conditions with their father? The trap was obvious but unavoidable. More affluent. More than that, surely. You've seen the home study report on Mr. Brennan's residence. 3 bedrooms. Fully equipped playroom. Grandmother in residence to provide additional support. Child psychologist partner who engages therapeutically with the children. I was enough for them. Were you? Because the children's statements suggest otherwise. She showed me transcripts from interviews with Sophie and Owen. A child psychologist had spoken to them separately. Sophie's interview destroyed me. Question: How do you feel about your mommy? A: I love her, but I'm mad at her. Question: Why are you mad? A: Because she had lots of money and didn't share it with us. Grandma Victoria says that's selfish. Question: Do you feel safe with your mommy? A: I guess. But I like being at Daddy's house better. It's bigger and Miss Amanda plays with us and Grandma makes good food. Question: If you could choose, where would you want to live? A: With Daddy and Grandma Victoria and Miss Amanda. Owen's was shorter but equally damning. Question: Do you miss your mommy? A: Yes. Question: Do you want to see her? A: I don't know. Sophie says she's bad. Question: What do you think? A: I think I want to stay with Daddy. Dr. Chen watched me read through tears streaming down my face. Ms. Brennan, I need to ask you directly. Do you believe you prioritized your father's conditions over your children's well-being? The question I'd been avoiding asking myself. I thought I was teaching them something important, I whispered. About values. About who we are beyond what we own. They're 6 and 4 years old. They needed security, not philosophy lessons. They had security. They had me. Did they? Or did they have a mother so committed to proving she didn't need money that she couldn't see her children paying the price? I had no answer. The evaluation ended with Dr. Chen's professional smile and a statement that her full report would be submitted to the court within 1 week. I knew what it would say. David called that evening. Victoria's lawyer contacted me. They're willing to offer a settlement. What kind of settlement? You withdraw your opposition to the adoption. In exchange, they'll allow supervised visits once per month. 2 hours. As long as the children want to continue seeing you. Once per month. 2 hours. If my children wanted to. They're erasing me. Yes. But you'd still have some connection. Some chance to rebuild relationship eventually. And if I fight? You fight with everything you have. But Nora, I need to be honest. The preliminary evaluations are damning. Your children have stated a preference for their father's home. The court already found you deceptive. We can spend years in litigation and potentially end up with nothing. Or I can accept being reduced to a stranger who sees her children twice a year. I'm not saying you should take the settlement. I'm saying you need to understand the odds. I hung up and looked around my apartment. At the bedroom where my children used to sleep. At the kitchen where we'd made breakfast together. At the living room where we'd built blanket forts and read stories and been happy. Had we been happy? Or had I been so convinced I was teaching them something valuable that I'd miss their quiet suffering? Victoria had won by making me doubt everything. Every choice. Every moment. Every belief I'd held about what kind of mother I was. My phone rang. Unknown number. Ms. Brennan? This is Janet Morrison from Child Protective Services. My heart stopped. We've received a report of concerning behavior. A wellness check has been requested for your residence. What? Why? The report alleges possible mental health crisis and risk of self-harm. I need to schedule a home visit within the next 48 hours. I'm fine. I'm not going to hurt myself. That's good to hear. But we still need to conduct the visit. It's procedure. Victoria. It had to be Victoria. One more thing to add to the evidence pile. A CPS investigation suggesting I was mentally unstable. The caseworker came the next day. Looked through my apartment. Asked questions about my mental state. About whether I had thoughts of harming myself or others. No. I'm grieving the loss of my children, but I'm not dangerous. She made notes. Seemed satisfied. But the report would still exist. Another mark against me. That night, I stood in Owen's room holding his stuffed dinosaur. The one he'd slept with every single night. The one he'd left behind when Tyler took him. Had he asked for it? Did he miss it? Or had Amanda bought him a new one, better, more expensive, and he'd forgotten this one entirely? Rachel found me there an hour later, still holding the dinosaur. Nora, you're scaring me. I've lost them. I've actually lost them. Not yet. You still have time to respond to the adoption petition. And say what? That I'm sorry I prioritized my dead father's test over their living needs? That I realize now I was wrong, but please give me another chance. If that's what it takes, yes. I looked at her. Would you? Would you forgive someone who had the power to make your life better and chose not to use it because of pride? It wasn't pride. It was principle. What's the difference when you're 6 years old and your shoes are too small? I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how I'd gotten here. A woman with $700 million and nothing that mattered. A mother with no children. A person who'd been so certain she was right that she'd lost sight of what was important. My phone lit up at 2 a.m. with a notification. Tyler had posted on social media. A photo of him, Victoria, Amanda, Sophie, and Owen. All smiling at the camera. Looking like a perfect family. The caption, "Grateful for the people who make our house a home." Comments poured in. Friends congratulating them. Strangers saying how beautiful the family was. How happy the children looked. No one asked where the children's mother was. I'd already been erased. The response to the adoption petition was due in 10 days. And I had absolutely no idea what to write that wouldn't sound like the desperate pleading of a woman who'd already lost. I spent 3 days drafting responses to the adoption petition that I deleted before finishing. Everything I wrote sounded hollow. Defensive. Desperate. I was following my father's wishes, sounded like I valued a dead man over my living children. I was teaching them values, sounded like justification for deprivation. I love them sounded empty when they'd already said they preferred their father's home. On the 4th day, Rachel physically removed the laptop from my hands. You're spiraling. You need to step back and think strategically. There is no strategy. They have everything. The evaluations. The kid statements. The narrative. Then change the narrative. How? She sat down across from me. You have $700 million, Nora. You're acting like you're still powerless. You're not. Money can't fix this. No. But it can buy you the time and resources to fight properly. Real investigators. Expert witnesses. The best forensic psychologist to counter their evaluations. You're still playing like you're broke and helpless. Because throwing money at this makes me look exactly how Victoria wants me to look. Rich and manipulative. So you do nothing? Accept their settlement? Become the once-a-month visitor in your own children's lives. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer, expecting another process server or CPS worker. Ms. Brennan? This is Catherine Price. I'm a family law attorney specializing in parental alienation cases. I already have an attorney. I know. David Romero is excellent. But he referred your case to me because this isn't a standard custody dispute anymore. This is a systematic campaign to erase you from your children's lives. And I've seen it before. Something in her voice made me listen. Victoria Brennan has done this before, Catherine continued. To Tyler's first stepmother. Everything stopped. What? Tyler's father remarried when Tyler was 12. The marriage lasted 3 years before the woman fled with nothing. Victoria convinced Tyler his stepmother was trying to replace his real mother, turned him against her, made the woman's life such hell that she eventually gave up and left. I represented her in the divorce. How do you know about my case? Because someone contacted me. Someone who's been watching Victoria do this to you and couldn't stay silent anymore. Who? I'm at a coffee shop 2 blocks from your apartment. Can you meet me now? 20 minutes later, I walked into the coffee shop and found Catherine at a corner table. She was in her 50s, sharp-eyed, with the look of someone who'd seen every dirty trick in family court and developed immunity. Next to her sat a woman I'd never met. Older, maybe 60, well-dressed, but worn around the edges. Nora, this is Claire Winters. She was married to Tyler's father. Claire smiled sadly. I should have reached out sooner. But I was afraid. Victoria has a way of destroying anyone who crosses her. I don't understand. Catherine pulled out a file. Claire contacted me when she saw the custody case in the court records. She recognized the pattern. Everything Victoria is doing to you, she did to Claire. Claire leaned forward. I married Robert when Tyler was 12. He was a sweet kid. quiet, still grieving his mother. I try to be supportive, not replace her. But Victoria couldn't stand that Robert had moved on. She still loved him? No. She loved controlling him. And through him, controlling Tyler. When Robert remarried, she lost that control. Claire's hands tightened around her coffee cup. She started small, showing up unannounced, criticizing my parenting choices, buying Tyler things I couldn't afford, telling him I was trying to erase his mother's memory. The pattern was sickeningly familiar. Tyler started acting out, refusing to listen to me, saying cruel things he'd clearly heard from Victoria. Robert tried to set boundaries, but Victoria would cry and manipulate and make him feel guilty for abandoning her. What happened? It escalated. She filed for grandparental rights, claiming Robert and I were unfit. That Tyler was being neglected. She had documentation. Photos of Tyler looking unhappy that she'd staged. Testimony from Tyler himself saying he didn't want to live with us. My stomach turned. The case dragged on for 2 years. The stress destroyed my marriage. Robert started blaming me for the conflict. Said if I just accommodated his mother more, everything would be fine. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I left. And Tyler stayed with his father, who died 3 years later from a heart attack. Tyler was 19. And Victoria had him all to herself again. Catherine opened the file. I've been doing some research since Claire contacted me. Victoria has a pattern. She's driven away every significant relationship in Tyler's life. A serious girlfriend in college who filed a restraining order. A business partner who severed ties. And now you. Why are you telling me this? Because Victoria filed the adoption petition. Not just Tyler. Both of them. She wants legal parental rights to your children. I know that. But do you understand why? Catherine pulled out another document. Victoria is 68 years old. She has a heart condition she's been managing for 5 years. Her doctor's notes suggest she has maybe 10 years left, probably fewer. I don't see. She wants to legally bind those children to her bloodline before she dies. If she adopts them, they inherit from her estate. But more than that, they become hers in a way they never can be as grandchildren. She's not doing this for Tyler. She's doing this for herself. The pieces clicked into place. Victoria's increasing involvement. The move into Tyler's apartment. The introduction of Amanda as a replacement mother. All of it designed to create the perfect family unit with Victoria at the center. But why go this far? They're already her grandchildren. Claire spoke quietly. Because grandchildren can be taken away. If Tyler remarries someone strong enough to stand up to Victoria, that person could limit her access. But if Victoria is their legal parent, no one can remove her from their lives. She wins permanently. I stared at the documents Catherine had spread across the table. Medical records. Court filings. A pattern spanning decades. The mysterious texts I said. The one telling me to listen at Tyler's door. That was you. Claire nodded. I couldn't let her do this to someone else. I've lived with the guilt of walking away for 20 years. I should have fought harder. I should have exposed her. You were surviving, Catherine said gently. Then to me, but you don't have to just survive. You have resources Claire didn't have. And you have something else. What? Evidence. Victoria has been sloppy this time because she thinks she's already won. She's documented her own campaign. The social media posts. The statements to the custody evaluator. The way she's isolated the children from you. It's all textbook parental alienation. The court doesn't care. They see a stable home with Tyler and an unstable situation with me. Because you've been playing defense. Reacting to everything she does. Trying to prove you're not the person she's painted you as. Catherine's eyes were sharp. It's time to go on offense. How? We stop fighting about whether you're fit and start fighting about whether Victoria's involvement is damaging. We bring in experts on parental alienation. We subpoena her medical records to show she's using your children for her own psychological needs. We depose Amanda about when she actually met Tyler and whether she's been coaching the children's statements. We expose this entire operation for what it is. That could take months. Years. It will take as long as it takes. But here's what happens immediately. We file our own emergency petition. We present this evidence of a pattern of behavior. We request that Victoria's contact with the children be limited pending psychological evaluation. We flip the script. My head was spinning. Victoria will fight back. Of course she will. She'll call you vindictive. Say you're attacking a grandmother who loves her grandchildren. But we'll have Claire's testimony, medical records, documentation. We'll make the court see what's really happening. And Tyler. Catherine's expression softened slightly. Tyler is a victim too. Victoria has been manipulating him his entire life. He genuinely believes he's protecting his children from you because that's what she's convinced him. But he's not evil, just controlled. I thought about the man I'd married, the one who'd seemed so different from his mother. Had he ever really been his own person? Or had Victoria been pulling strings I was too naive to see? The kids will hate me more if I attack their grandmother. They might, Catherine said honestly. In the short term. But Nora, if you don't fight this, you lose them forever. At least if you fight, you have a chance. And when they're older, they'll have a mother who didn't abandon them, who fought for them even when it was hard. Claire reached across the table and took my hand. I walked away because I didn't have the strength to fight Victoria. I was alone, broke, and broken. You're not alone. You have resources. You have evidence. And you have the truth on your side. What if the truth isn't enough? Then you'll know you did everything possible. But if you don't try, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what might have happened if you'd been brave enough to fight. I looked down at the file Catherine had brought. At Claire's face, lined with regret. At my phone, with no messages from my children because they weren't allowed to contact me. The choice crystallized. I could accept Victoria's settlement. Become a footnote in my children's lives. See them once a month until they were old enough to refuse even that. Live with $700 million and the knowledge that I'd let someone steal my children because fighting back was too hard, too risky, too likely to make me look bad. Or I could fight. Really fight. Not with apologies and explanations, but with evidence and strategy and every resource I had. I could lose. Probably would lose the short-term battles. But at least I'd go down swinging. What do we do first? I asked. Catherine smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a lawyer who'd been waiting for her client to get angry instead of sad. First, we hire a private investigator. Someone who can dig into Victoria's life, her finances, her medical history, her patterns. Someone who can find every skeleton in her closet. Second, she continued, pulling out her laptop, we hire a forensic psychologist who specializes in parental alienation. Someone who can evaluate the children's statements and show they've been coached and manipulated. Third, we get you into therapy immediately. Real therapy with documentation showing you're mentally stable, processing your grief appropriately, and focused on the children's well-being. Fourth, we file a motion to compel Amanda's therapy notes with the children. If she's been conducting therapeutic activities with them while living with Tyler, that's an ethical violation. She can't be both Tyler's girlfriend and the children's therapist. Claire pulled out her phone. And fifth, you let me testify. Let me tell the court exactly who Victoria Brennan is and what she does to people. Let me be the cautionary tale that makes the judge look twice at this perfect family she's constructed. Catherine nodded. We build a case that's not about you defending yourself. It's about exposing a pattern of psychological abuse that's been going on for decades. You become the hero protecting your children from a manipulative grandmother, not the villain trying to steal them back. How much is this going to cost? A lot. Probably a few million by the time we're done. Investigators, expert witnesses, litigation fees. Maybe more if they drag it out. I thought about my father. About the test he designed to teach me who people really were. He'd wanted me to learn that money showed you pretense and poverty showed you truth. But he'd never anticipated this. That the truth wouldn't be enough. That I'd need the money not to buy love but to fight for it. Do it, I said. All of it. I don't care what it costs. Catherine pulled out a contract. I need to be clear about something. This is going to get ugly. Victoria will fight back with everything she has. She'll make you look vindictive, cruel, obsessed. She'll tell the children you're trying to hurt their grandmother. The short-term damage to your relationship with Sophie and Owen might get worse before it gets better. I understand. And you might still lose. The court might decide that even if Victoria is manipulative, the children are settled and happy and shouldn't be disrupted. We might expose everything and still not get your custody back. But I'll have tried. Yes, you'll have tried. I signed the contract. Rachel, who'd been sitting quietly at the next table giving me space, came over. So we're fighting? We're fighting. She hugged me tight. Finally. I was beginning to think you'd actually give up. That night, I couldn't sleep, but it was different than before. Instead of lying awake drowning in despair, I was thinking. Planning. Strategizing. Catherine had given me assignments. Write down every incident of Victoria's interference. Every time she'd undermined me. Every comment she'd made to the children. Every boundary she'd crossed. I started a document and couldn't stop writing. The rearranged kitchen. The changed birthday party. The constant criticism. The key she'd demanded. The way she'd isolated me from Tyler. The things she'd told the children about me. It was all there. A pattern I'd been too close to see. By sunrise, I had 20 pages. I sent it to Catherine. Her response came an hour later. This is perfect. This is exactly what we need. Now get some sleep. You're going to need your strength. I managed 3 hours. Then got up and called the private investigator Catherine had recommended. His name was Marcus Liu and his voice was professionally neutral. Ms. Price briefed me on your case. I need to ask you something directly. How far are you willing to let me dig? As far as you need to go to find the truth. Even if that truth includes things about your ex-husband, things that might hurt him. I thought about Tyler. About the man I'd loved. The man who'd become his mother's weapon. He chose to take my children. Whatever you find, he earned. Understood. I'll have a preliminary report in 1 week. The forensic psychologist was next. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo listened to my story without interruption, then asked one question. Do you believe your children still love you? I don't know. They say they prefer their father's home. I didn't ask where they prefer to live. I asked if they still love you. I thought about Owen clinging to me during that last visit. About Sophie's anger, which was just hurt turned outward. Yes, I think they do. Then we have something to work with. Children don't stop loving their mothers overnight. They're taught to suppress that love, to redirect it. But it's still there. She made a note. I'll need to interview them. It won't be easy to arrange given the custody situation, but we'll petition the court. Everything was moving. Finally moving. I showed up at my apartment building that evening to find a man waiting by my door. Expensive suit. Leather briefcase. The look of someone who billed by the minute. Nora Brennan? Yes. I'm representing Victoria Brennan. She asked me to deliver this personally. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter on heavy cardstock. Nora, I'm disappointed that you're choosing to fight this. Tyler and I only want what's best for Sophie and Owen. Dragging this through the courts will only hurt them. I'm asking you, mother, to reconsider. Let them have stability. Let them have peace. Let them have a real family. You can still be part of their lives. Just not the center of it. That's my role now. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. With concern, Victoria. Mother to mother. She was signing letters as their mother now. I handed the letter back to the lawyer. Tell Victoria I'll see her in court. He looked uncomfortable. She asked me to inform you that if you proceed with litigation, she'll have no choice but to request a full mental health evaluation. She has concerns about your stability. She can request whatever she wants. I'm not backing down. He left, and I stood in my hallway feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Powerful. I wasn't the victim of Victoria's scheme anymore. I was the woman who was going to dismantle it piece by piece. My phone rang. Catherine. Victoria's lawyer just contacted me threatening a mental health evaluation if you don't withdraw. I know. He was just here. Good. Let her request it. We'll request one for her too. And for Tyler. And we'll make sure Amanda's professional conduct gets reviewed by her licensing board. Catherine's voice was filled with grim satisfaction. She wants to play hardball? Let's show her what that actually looks like. I hung up and walked into my apartment. Looked at Owen's stuffed dinosaur. At Sophie's drawings on the refrigerator. I'm coming for you, I whispered. Mommy's coming. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed it might be true. Marcus Liu's preliminary report arrived 6 days later. I sat at my kitchen table reading it with Catherine on speakerphone. "Page 4, she said. "That's the gold." I flipped to page 4 and felt my blood pressure spike. Victoria Brennan had filed for grandparental rights twice before. Once against Claire, which I knew about, but also against Tyler's college girlfriend, Melissa Chin, who'd gotten pregnant at 22. "She had a baby?" I asked. "Miscarried at 4 months. But before that happened, Victoria had already filed paperwork claiming the mother was unfit. Drug use allegations that were completely fabricated. The relationship ended shortly after the miscarriage. Melissa has a restraining order against Victoria that's still active. Can we find her?" Marcus already did. "She's willing to testify." I kept reading. Victoria's finances showed a pattern of control. She'd been supporting Tyler financially for years. His apartment, his car, even his job at the company she had connections to. Everything in Tyler's life was funded or facilitated by his mother. He wasn't just controlled. He was completely dependent. "Page 9, Catherine said. "Medical records." Marcus had gotten them through means I decided not to ask about. Victoria's heart condition was real, but not as severe as she'd claimed. Her doctor had recommended moderate lifestyle changes, not end-of-life planning. But there was something else. Prescriptions for anti-anxiety medication at doses that suggested severe psychological issues. Notes from a psychiatrist about obsessive attachment patterns and difficulty with separation and loss. "She's been in therapy for 15 years, Catherine said, for controlling behavior and unhealthy attachment to her son. The therapist's notes suggest she sees Tyler as a replacement for her dead husband. That she's emotionally dependent on him in an unhealthy way. Can we use this?" Every word. It establishes a pattern of psychological dysfunction that directly relates to her behavior with your children. Page 12 detailed Amanda's background. She'd met Tyler 9 months ago. Not after our separation. 3 months before Tyler asked for divorce. "He was cheating," I said flatly. "Yes, and Amanda was treating Tyler as a patient before they started dating. That's an ethical violation. She could lose her license." The report went on. Amanda had been feeding Tyler language about custody and child welfare. Had likely coached him on what to say to the evaluator. Had positioned herself as the expert validating his concerns about me. "We're filing a complaint with the state licensing board," Catherine said. "And we're deposing her. She'll have to choose between admitting the affair started before your divorce or admitting she violated professional ethics. Either way, she's compromised." The full custody hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks away. Catherine filed motion after motion in the meantime. Motion to compel Amanda's therapy notes. Motion to limit Victoria's contact with the children pending psychological evaluation. Motion to depose all parties involved. Motion to admit Claire and Melissa as witnesses to Victoria's pattern of behavior. Tyler's lawyer fought everything. Filed his own motions claiming I was harassing the family. That I was using money to bully them. That I was demonstrating the exact vindictive behavior that made me unfit. But Catherine was relentless. "Let them claim you're being aggressive. We're showing you're being thorough. There's a difference." Dr. Okonkwo completed her evaluation of me and submitted her report. It was devastating to Victoria's case. Ms. Brennan demonstrates no signs of mental instability or unfitness. Her decision to live modestly while honoring her father's trust conditions shows commitment to principle, not neglect of her children. Her current emotional distress is a normal response to forced separation from her children and does not indicate pathology. In my professional opinion, the allegations of unfitness are unfounded and appear to be part of a systematic campaign of parental alienation. Tyler's lawyer tried to get it excluded. The judge denied the motion. Marcus found more. Victoria had been documenting everything for months. Photos of me looking tired. Screenshots of my sparse apartment. She'd even hired someone to photograph me at the grocery store buying generic brands instead of name brands. She was building a case before Tyler even filed for divorce, Marcus explained. This was premeditated. She was planning to take those kids from the beginning. But why? Page 18. I turned to a section labeled Financial Motivation. Victoria had taken out a life insurance policy on herself, listing Sophie and Owen as beneficiaries. $2 million each. But only if she was their legal parent at the time of death. She's using them as an investment, I said, sickened. Or she genuinely believes she's going to die soon and wants to leave them provided for. Either way, it shows financial motivation for the adoption that has nothing to do with the children's welfare. The evidence kept mounting. Every day brought something new. But the children were still gone. Still living with Tyler and Victoria and Amanda. Still being told I was unfit, unstable, unworthy. Rachel convinced me to start therapy with Dr. Okonkwo beyond the evaluation. I resisted at first. I don't need therapy. I need my kids. You need both. And when this goes to court, you need to show you've been proactive about your mental health. She was right. So twice a week, I sat in Dr. Okonkwo's office and talked about grief and rage and the impossibility of fighting someone who'd convinced your children you were the enemy. You're not fighting for them to love you, Dr. Okonkwo said during one session. You're fighting for the right to be present while they figure out the truth. Love isn't something you win in court. It's something you rebuild over time through consistent presence and truth. What if there is no time? What if the judge terminates my rights? Then you appeal. And you keep fighting. But Nora, you need to prepare yourself for the possibility that even when you win legally, it will take years to win emotionally. The damage Victoria has done won't disappear with a court order. I knew she was right. But I couldn't think about years. I had to focus on weeks. On the hearing that would determine everything. Catherine scheduled a prep session 1 week before the hearing. We're going to go through everything they might ask you. Every question will be designed to make you look unstable, vindictive, or manipulative. You need to stay calm and factual no matter what. We practiced for 6 hours. She threw every horrible question at me. Isn't it true you lied to your husband for 7 years about your wealth? Isn't it true you let your children wear inadequate clothing when you could afford better? Isn't it true you're only fighting for custody now because you're embarrassed by losing? Isn't it true you're using money to bully a grandmother who loves your children? By the end, I was exhausted but ready. The day before the hearing, Tyler called me directly. First time since the divorce. Nora, please don't do this. His voice cracked. He sounded genuinely distressed. Don't do what? Fight for my children. Don't attack my mother. Don't drag Amanda through this. Don't make this uglier than it has to be. You took my kids, Tyler. You let your mother convince you I was unfit when you knew better. You introduced our children to your girlfriend before the divorce was final. You let Victoria poison them against me. And now you want me to back down because fighting back is ugly. My mother loves those kids. Your mother is using those kids. Just like she's used you your entire life. Silence. You don't know what you're talking about, he said finally. Don't I? Did you know she filed for grandparental rights against Melissa Chin? Against the girlfriend who miscarried your baby. More silence. Did you know Amanda was your therapist before she was your girlfriend? That she violated professional ethics by dating you. That's not we didn't. Did you know your mother has been financially supporting you for years? That you don't actually have independence from her at all? That every job, every apartment, every piece of your life is controlled by her. She's helping me. That's what family does. No, Tyler. That's what manipulators do. They make you dependent so you can never leave. I took a breath. I loved you. I built a life with you. And you let your mother destroy it because you've never been strong enough to stand up to her. I'm doing what's best for my kids. You're doing what Victoria told you is best. Have you ever once stopped to think for yourself? To question whether she might be wrong? He hung up. I stared at my phone, shaking. Part of me hoped I'd gotten through to him. Most of me knew I hadn't. The hearing started at 9 a.m. I wore a simple navy dress. Professional but not expensive looking. Catherine said we wanted to project stable mother, not wealthy woman throwing money around. Tyler sat across the courtroom with Victoria and his lawyer. Amanda wasn't there. Catherine had gotten her barred from attending since she was being called as a witness. The judge was Maria Santos, a woman in her 60s with a reputation for being tough but fair. This is a hearing on the petition for adoption filed by Victoria Brennan and Tyler Brennan, she began, as well as Ms. Nora Brennan's opposition and counter-petition for restoration of custody. This is going to be a long day, so let's begin. Tyler's lawyer went first, presenting the same narrative. Unfit mother. Loving grandmother. Stable home. Children's stated preferences. Then Catherine stood. Your Honor, what we're going to show today is not a custody dispute. It's a decades-long pattern of psychological abuse and manipulation by Victoria Brennan. A pattern of destroying any relationship that threatens her control over her son. And now, an attempt to legally claim children who are not hers because she cannot accept normal boundaries. She called Claire Winters first. Claire walked to the stand looking nervous but determined. She testified about her marriage to Robert. About Victoria's interference. About the grandparental rights case and how it destroyed her family. She told Robert the first was trying to erase Tyler's mother. That I was cruel to Tyler. That I was unfit to be around him. None of it was true, but she was so convincing. Claire's voice shook. By the end, my own husband believed her over me. I lost everything because I couldn't compete with her manipulation. Tyler's lawyer cross-examined aggressively. Isn't it true your marriage ended because you had an affair? No. That's what Victoria told Robert, but it wasn't true. You have no proof of this alleged manipulation, do you? Just your interpretation of a difficult family situation. I have the court records from her grandparental rights petition. I have the restraining order I had to file. I have the therapy records from trying to recover from what she did to me. Next was Melissa Chin. She was younger than I expected. Pretty composed, clearly still carrying trauma from what had happened. I was 22 when I got pregnant, she testified. Tyler and I were dating seriously. When I told him, he was happy. But when we told Victoria, everything changed. She described Victoria's immediate hostility. The accusations of trapping Tyler. The demands for a paternity test. The suggestion that Melissa get an abortion. When I refused, she filed for grandparental rights to a fetus. Claimed I was using drugs and would be an unfit mother. She hired a private investigator to follow me, trying to get evidence. The stress contributed to my miscarriage. Melissa was crying now. After I lost the baby, Tyler ended things. Said his mother was right, that we were too young. But I know the truth. She destroyed our relationship because she couldn't control me. Because I threatened her hold on him. Tyler's face was pale. He was hearing some of this for the first time. Marcus Liu testified about his investigation. About the financial control. The medical records. The life insurance policies. In my professional opinion, Victoria Brennan has constructed a web of financial and emotional control around her son. The adoption petition is consistent with her pattern of attempting to legally formalize control over relationships. Tyler's lawyer objected repeatedly, but Judge Santos allowed most of it. Then Catherine called Amanda Foster. Amanda walked in looking professional and confident. That confidence lasted about 5 minutes. Dr. Foster, when did you first meet Tyler Brennan? About 10 months ago. In what capacity? He was referred to me for therapy regarding his divorce. And when did your romantic relationship begin? Amanda hesitated. After the therapy relationship ended. When specifically? I don't recall exactly. Catherine pulled out phone records. These show text messages between you and Tyler that are decidedly romantic in nature, starting 8 months ago, while he was still your patient. Is that correct? Amanda's face flushed. The therapeutic relationship had functionally ended before. Yes or no, Dr. Foster? Were you in a romantic relationship with a patient? It's complicated. I'll take that as a yes. Now, you've been living with Tyler and his children for approximately 6 weeks. Have you been conducting therapeutic activities with Sophie and Owen? I've engaged with them in developmentally appropriate play. Play therapy is a therapeutic modality, is it not? Yes, but I wasn't conducting formal therapy. But you used your observations of the children to support Tyler's custody petition, didn't you? You provided him with professional language about their emotional state. I was helping him understand his children's needs. You were acting as their therapist while dating their father. That's an ethical violation, Dr. Foster. Catherine presented the licensing board complaint. Amanda's composure cracked completely. Then it was Victoria's turn. She took the stand looking dignified and sorrowful. The perfect wronged grandmother. Catherine didn't waste time. Ms. Brennan, how many times have you filed for grandparental rights or custody of children? I don't understand the question. Let me be more specific. You filed for grandparental rights against Claire Winters regarding Tyler, correct? That was different. She was. Yes or no, please. Yes. And you filed for grandparental rights against Melissa Chin regarding her unborn child? Tyler jerked in his seat. That was to protect. Yes or no? Yes. And now you're filing to adopt Sophie and Owen. That's 3 separate attempts to gain legal rights to children who are not yours. Is that correct? I'm their grandmother. I love them. You've also taken out life insurance policies listing them as beneficiaries, contingent on the adoption being finalized. Correct? Victoria's lawyer objected. Judge Santos overruled. That's to provide for them after I'm gone. $2 million each. Quite a substantial investment in children you claim to love selflessly. Catherine pulled out medical records. Your doctor's notes indicate your heart condition is manageable with medication and lifestyle changes. You're not terminal. So why the urgency to adopt? I want to make sure they're protected. Protected from what? Their mother. From instability. From someone who prioritized money games over their welfare. Let's talk about money. You've been financially supporting Tyler for how many years? I help my son. That's not a crime. You pay his rent, his car payment, and got him his job through your connections. He's 41 years old and completely financially dependent on you. Isn't that true? I'm supporting my family. You're controlling your family. Just like you controlled your late husband. Just like you tried to control Claire Winters and Melissa Chin. Just like you're trying to control these children. Victoria's mask started to crack. I have done nothing but love and support. You've systematically destroyed every relationship that threatened your control over Tyler. And when Nora wouldn't let you control her, you decided to take her children instead. That's not true. Then explain the photographs. Catherine presented the surveillance photos Victoria had commissioned. You hired someone to follow Nora months before the divorce. To document her apartment, her shopping habits, her appearance. You were building a case against her while she still thought she was part of this family. Victoria's face twisted. Someone had to protect those children from her choices. Her choice to live modestly? To teach her children values? Or her choice not to let you control her? She let them suffer when she could have given them everything. They weren't suffering. They had a mother who loved them, adequate housing, food, and care. What they didn't have was a grandmother who knew boundaries. Victoria stood up suddenly. Those children need me. Tyler needs me. I'm the only one who's ever really cared about this family. Sit down, Ms. Brennan, Judge Santos said sharply. But Victoria was unraveling. I've given everything to Tyler. Everything. I've protected him, supported him, made sure he had the right life. And she tried to take him away with her poverty and her principles. Just like Claire tried to replace me. Just like Melissa tried to trap him. They're all the same. But I won't let anyone hurt my boy. The courtroom was silent. Catherine spoke quietly. Your Honor, I think we've just heard the truth. This isn't about the children's welfare. It's about Victoria Brennan's pathological need to control her son and everyone around him. Judge Santos called a recess. Tyler sat frozen in his chair, staring at his mother like he was seeing her for the first time. During the break, I watched him walk into the hallway. Catherine nodded for me to follow. He stood by a window, arms crossed, looking shattered. Tyler, I said softly. She hired someone to follow Melissa. During her pregnancy. The stress. He couldn't finish. I know. I told myself she was just protective. Just worried. But it's been my whole life, hasn't it? Every girlfriend who left. Every friend who stopped calling. Every job that didn't work out unless she arranged it. Yes. He turned to me with tears in his eyes. What did I do to our kids, Nora? You let your mother convince you I was the problem. Just like she convinced you everyone else was the problem. I thought I was protecting them. I know you did. But Tyler, you need to protect them from her now. Before she damages them the way she damaged you. He nodded slowly. What do I do? Tell the truth. Withdraw the adoption petition. Support reunification. And get yourself into real therapy. Not with Amanda. with someone who can help you see how much of your life has been controlled by Victoria. She'll never forgive me. She won't. But your kids might. Eventually. When we returned to the courtroom, Tyler asked to speak. Judge Santos looked surprised, but allowed it. Your Honor, I'd like to withdraw from the adoption petition. And I'd like to request that my mother's access to my children be evaluated by a professional. I think I've been blind to some things I needed to see. Victoria gasped. Tyler, what are you doing? He didn't look at her. What I should have done years ago. The judge made notes. Very well. Mr. Brennan, I appreciate your honesty. However, I still need to hear from Dr. Okonkwo regarding the children's current state and the impact of these proceedings. Dr. Okonkwo testified about parental alienation, about how children can be coached to reject a loving parent, about how Victoria's constant presence and messaging had systematically undermined my relationship with Sophie and Owen. In my professional opinion, these children have been psychologically manipulated. Their stated preference for their father's home is not a genuine reflection of their attachment to their mother, but rather a result of sustained alienation tactics. Can it be repaired? The judge asked. Yes, but it requires immediate intervention. Reunification therapy, strict limits on contact with the alienating party, and time for the children to rediscover their relationship with their mother without interference. Finally, Catherine called me. I walked to the stand on shaking legs. She took me through everything. My father's trust and why I'd honored it. My relationship with Tyler. My love for my children. The systematic campaign Victoria had waged against me. Do you love your children, Ms. Brennan? More than anything in this world. And if given the chance, what would you do differently? I thought about it honestly. I would have told Tyler about the trust earlier. Not to prove anything, but to avoid this exact situation. I would have set harder boundaries with Victoria from the beginning, even if it cost me my marriage. Because protecting my children should have come before keeping the peace. What do you want now? My kids back. Time to rebuild what's been broken. And for Victoria to get help so she can't do this to anyone else. Tyler's lawyer barely cross-examined me. His client had already withdrawn from the case. Judge Santos took a 30-minute recess to review everything. When she returned, her expression was grave. I've been a family court judge for 23 years. I've seen bitter custody disputes, parental alienation, and family dysfunction of every kind. But this case represents one of the most clear-cut examples of systematic psychological abuse I've encountered. Victoria started to speak. The judge cut her off. Ms. Victoria Brennan, your pattern of behavior over multiple decades demonstrates that you are not a safe presence in these children's lives. Your adoption petition is denied. Furthermore, I am ordering that your contact with Sophie and Owen be limited to supervised visits, once per month, pending completion of a psychological evaluation and parenting classes focused on boundaries and appropriate grandparent involvement. Victoria's face went white. Mr. Tyler Brennan, I commend you for your honesty today, though it came late. I am ordering that you participate in individual therapy addressing enmeshment and family dysfunction. You will also participate in reunification therapy with the children and their mother. She turned to me. Ms. Nora Brennan, I am restoring your custody rights. We will begin with a graduated reunification plan. Unsupervised visits 3 times per week, increasing to overnight visits within 2 weeks, with the goal of returning to a co-parenting arrangement within 60 days. All parties will participate in family therapy. I couldn't breathe. However, the judge continued, I want to be clear. The damage done to these children's relationship with their mother is significant. This is not a victory, Ms. Brennan. This is the beginning of a long healing process. The court will monitor progress closely. The gavel fell. I'd won. Not everything. Not yet. But enough. Catherine hugged me. Rachel, who'd been sitting in the gallery, was crying. Tyler approached me cautiously. I'm sorry, Nora. For all of it. I know. But you don't apologize to me. You apologize to Sophie and Owen by doing better. He nodded and walked away. Victoria stood alone, her lawyer packing up papers. She looked smaller somehow. Diminished. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered my children's faces when they'd been taken from the courthouse. When they'd reached for me and been carried away. The pity evaporated. I walked past her without a word. Outside the courthouse, Catherine outlined next steps. Reunification therapy schedule. Coordination with Tyler. Logistics of the graduated custody plan. But all I could think about was that in 2 days, I'd see my children again. Really see them. Without a supervisor taking notes. Without a time limit. 2 days until I started fighting for their hearts instead of just their custody. 2 days until the real work began. The first reunification session was scheduled for Thursday afternoon at Dr. Okonkwo's office. I arrived 30 minutes early, too nervous to wait at home. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Catherine had warned me. They've been told for months that you're unfit. That you chose money over them. That you don't deserve them. One court order doesn't erase that programming. This is going to be hard. Tyler brought them at exactly 3 p.m. Sophie walked in with her arms crossed, chin up, looking like a miniature version of Victoria. Owen hid behind his father's leg. My heart cracked clean through. "Hi, babies," I said softly. Sophie said nothing. Owen peeked out at me, then hid again. Dr. Okonkwo stepped in smoothly. "Sophie, Owen, thank you for coming. Your mom has missed you very much. Should we sit down and talk?" The first hour was excruciating. Sophie refused to look at me. Owen would only speak in whispers to Dr. Okonkwo. They both acted like I was a stranger. "Sophie, can you tell your mom how you're feeling?" Dr. Okonkwo asked gently. "Mad. Can you tell her why?" "Because she lied. Grandma Victoria said she had lots of money and pretended to be poor." "That's lying." I took a breath. "Sophie, I need to explain something. My father, your grandpa who died before you were born, left me money in a trust. But I couldn't have it until my birthday. It was like a test. He wanted me to learn important things about life first. But we could have had a big house," Sophie said, and her voice cracked. "Owen's shoes were too small and you said we had to wait. But you had money. I didn't have it yet, baby. It wasn't mine to use. And even if it was, our apartment was good enough. We were happy there, weren't we? Remember making pillow forts? Reading stories before bed? Miss Amanda's house is better." The words were Victoria's. I could hear her voice in them. "Maybe it's bigger. But bigger doesn't mean better. And Miss Amanda isn't your mom." "I am." Sophie's face crumpled. "Grandma Victoria said you didn't want us anymore. That's why we had to live with Daddy." I knelt down in front of her, ignoring Dr. Okonkwo's subtle headshake about moving too fast. "Sophie Marie, look at me. I have wanted you every single second of every single day since you were born. The court took you from me. Grandma Victoria took you from me. But I never, ever stopped wanting you. I fought so hard to get back to you. Do you understand?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You didn't call us. Daddy wouldn't let me. I tried. I wanted to talk to you so badly." Owen came out from behind Dr. Okonkwo's chair. "Really? Really, buddy? I missed you so much I thought my heart would break." He took one hesitant step toward me. Then another. Then he was in my arms, crying, holding on to me like he'd drown if he let go. Sophie held out for another few seconds. Then she crashed into us both. We sat on the floor of that office, the three of us tangled together, all crying. "I missed you, Mommy," Sophie sobbed. "I tried not to, but I did." "I know, baby. I know." It wasn't fixed. Not by a long shot. But it was a start. The visits increased gradually. 3 times a week at Dr. Okonkwo's office. Then unsupervised visits at a park. Then visits at my apartment. I'd moved. Catherine had been right about that. Staying in the small apartment made no sense now. I found a house with a yard, 15 minutes from Tyler's place. Each kid got their own bedroom. I let them decorate however they wanted. Sophie chose purple everything. Owen wanted dinosaurs on every wall. The first overnight visit, Sophie inspected everything like she was looking for flaws. "It's nice," she admitted grudgingly. "But Daddy's house has a pool. This house has something better. It has me, and I'm here for you every single day that you're with me. No distractions. No Grandma Victoria telling you what to think. Just us." Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt. Sophie started smiling again. Owen stopped asking when they had to go back to Daddy's. They still had anger, confusion, questions I didn't always know how to answer. Why didn't you just tell Daddy about the money? Sophie asked one night during dinner. Because I wanted to make sure he loved me for me, not for what I could give him. That's dumb. You're probably right. I made mistakes, Sophie. I'm not perfect. But I love you perfectly. That's the one thing I've never gotten wrong. Tyler was true to his word about therapy. He started seeing a psychologist who specialized in enmeshment and family systems. The changes were gradual but real. He apologized to the kids. Told them he'd been wrong about me. That Grandma Victoria had confused him. That he should have protected them better. He moved out of the apartment Victoria had been paying for. Got a smaller place he could afford himself. Started setting boundaries with his mother. Victoria fought it viciously. Called him ungrateful. Threatened to cut him off financially. When that didn't work, she tried guilt. Told him she was dying, that he was abandoning her in her final days. Tyler held firm. I need distance, Mom. For my health and for my kids' health. I'll see you once a month for supervised visits with Sophie and Owen. That's all I can do right now. She threatened to sue for grandparents' rights again. Catherine sent her lawyer a letter outlining exactly what would happen if she tried. The letter included the phrase restraining order and harassment charges. Victoria backed down. Amanda lost her license. The ethics board found that she'd violated professional boundaries by dating a patient and conducting therapeutic activities with his children while in a romantic relationship with their father. Tyler ended things with her shortly after. He told me about it during a pickup. I think I was looking for someone to tell me what to do. Someone to replace my mother's voice in my head. That's not fair to Amanda or to me. Good insight. You're doing the work. I'm trying. For the kids. And because I'm tired of being 41 years old and realizing I've never actually made my own choices. By month 3, Sophie and Owen were thriving. Their therapist reported that the alienation was reversing. That they were talking about me positively. That they understood they'd been manipulated. Sophie asked me one night, is Grandma Victoria a bad person? I thought carefully. I think she's a hurt person who hurt other people. She loves you in her way, but that love isn't healthy. Sometimes people who love us still do damage. Will we see her again? If you want to. But only with supervision. Only when you're ready. And only for short visits. I don't think I want to yet. That's okay. You get to decide. The custody arrangement settled into a real co-parenting situation. Week on, week off. Holidays split fairly. Tyler and I managing to be friendly, if not quite friends. He was dating someone new. A woman named Kelly who had her own career, her own life, and no interest in meeting the kids until the relationship was serious. It had been 6 months and they still hadn't met her. I'm taking it slow, Tyler said. Making sure I'm choosing her for the right reasons. Not because she reminds me of my mother or because I need someone to make decisions for me. I'm proud of you. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not for leaving. Maybe we weren't right for each other. But for letting my mother weaponize our kids. For believing her narrative instead of trusting what I knew about you. For being too weak to stand up for what was right. I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. But because holding on to it hurts me more than it hurts you. Victoria had one supervised visit with the kids. She brought expensive presents and tried to buy back their affection. Sophie looked at the toys and said, "No thank you, Grandma. We don't need presents. We have everything we need." Victoria's face crumpled. "I just wanted to give you nice things. You wanted to make us think Mommy couldn't give us nice things. But she can. And she does. But more importantly, she gives us time and truth and hugs. That matters more." My 6-year-old daughter had seen through everything. Victoria didn't request another visit. I heard through Tyler that she'd moved to Arizona. Claimed the climate was better for her heart. But really, she couldn't handle being close to the children she couldn't control. 6 months after the custody hearing, my life had transformed completely. I'd started a foundation with part of the trust fund. It provided legal support and resources for parents fighting parental alienation cases. Free lawyers. Expert witnesses. Investigators. Everything I'd needed, made available to people who couldn't afford it. Claire Winters came on as a board member. Melissa Chin worked as an advocate, helping other women recognize the warning signs of controlling family members. We'd already helped 12 families. 12 parents who'd been where I was. Desperate. Broken. Believing they'd lost everything. Rachel ran the day-to-day operations. I funded it and showed up as the face of what survival looked like. The work was healing. Every parent we helped felt like redemption. I also did something my father never anticipated. I took Sophie and Owen to visit his grave. "This is your grandpa James," I told them. "He gave us the money I have now. But more than that, he taught me that people matter more than things." I think I forgot that for a while. Got so focused on his test that I missed the point. What was the point? Owen asked. "That love is what you do, not what you have. And I should have done better by you." Sophie took my hand. "You did okay, Mommy. You just had to learn some stuff first." Out of the mouths of babes. A year after the custody hearing, Sophie and Owen were fully settled. Happy. Healthy. Still in therapy, but making progress. Tyler was still working on himself. Still learning who he was outside his mother's shadow. Victoria sent a card on Sophie's 8th birthday. It said, "I love you and always will. Grandma." Sophie read it, shrugged, and threw it away. Maybe someday I'll want to talk to her. But not today. I was okay with that. As for me, I'd learned something my father had tried to teach me, but in a way he never expected. Money didn't show me who people were. Crisis did. Losing everything revealed truth in a way wealth never could. And the truth was that I was stronger than I knew. That my children loved me even when they'd been taught not to. That fighting for what matters is always worth it, even when the odds seem impossible. I still live simply in some ways. I didn't need a mansion or a fleet of cars. But I used the resources I had to make sure my kids felt secure. To help other families. To build something meaningful from the ashes of what Victoria had tried to destroy. Sometimes late at night, when Sophie and Owen are asleep in their rooms and the house is quiet, I think about those weeks when I'd lost them. When I believed they were gone forever. And I'm grateful. Not for the pain, but for what it taught me. That being a mother isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up, fighting back, and never giving up even when everything seems lost. Victoria tried to steal my children. But she gave me something she never intended. She gave me absolute certainty about who I am, what I'm capable of, and what I'll do to protect the people I love. And that's a gift I'll carry forever. So to anyone listening to this story right now, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, I need you to hear this. You are stronger than the people trying to break you. Your truth matters even when others try to bury it. And fighting for what you love is never wasted, even if the battle is long and painful. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about survival, strength, and justice. And comment below telling me about a time you had to fight for something that mattered. I read every single comment. Your stories matter to me. My name is Nora Ashford. I'm a mother, a fighter, and a woman who learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you're really made of. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, the people who underestimate you are just giving you the element of surprise when you prove them wrong. Trust me on that.